Hello, this is Eric. Today is April the 21st, 2023. And in this video, we'll keep covering the military dictatorship period in Brazil. And this time we'll talk about the Costa e Silva government. Well, keep in mind that Costa e Silva was the Minister of War at the Castelo Branco government, right? So Castelo Branco died in an airplane crash, as I told you in our previous video. If you haven't watched it, please go back to the Castelo Branco video and watch it before watching this video. And so as a result, Costa e Silva was indirectly elected president of Brazil, right? And Costa e Silva, unlike Castelo Branco, was a legitimate representative of the hardline sector among the military, right? So he was really interested in not only maintaining repression, but in hardening it up, right? Here you have a picture of him, right? So he took office in 1967, and he ended up having a stroke in late 1969, and he even died in December of that year, right? And now we're going to be analyzing what he did during his term, right? So keep in mind that after the Castelo Branco years, some sectors of society, including the progressive clergy, and you might be wondering, wait a minute, did not the church participate in the movement to withdraw Jango from power and to establish the military regime? Yes, but the clergy is not homogeneous, is not entirely homogeneous, right? There were some sectors, some progressive sectors in the Catholic Church that supported democracy and free and right for freedom, for freely manifesting your thoughts, right? And the main leader of this progressive clergy is Don Elder Câmara, the Bishop of Olinda, right? But so they are gonna join forces with the UNE, the students concentration, the students movement that is operating at this time in clandestinity, right? And they are going to join forces with, some members of the society, some, I would say some prestigious and famous members of societies like singers and artists in general, right? And really, they're going to be a pain in the ass, to tell you the truth, for the military. They were interested in maintaining, the power of the regime, but they needed something. They needed a pretext, to harden things up, right? So in Rio de Janeiro in 1968, we had the death of student Edison Luiz at the Calabouço restaurant. Right. Actually, the students in this occasion, they were pacifically manifesting, right? And really the goal of this manifestation was really, better conditions for this restaurant that assisted the students, the students in Rio de Janeiro. So it was not something really directly linked to the regime. But the police went there and they thought that they were all about subversion, and they ended up killing, this youngster. And after, killing this youngster, I would say that the whole problem really began, right? We had right away the 100,000 parade in Rio de Janeiro. Let me show you pictures. Here you have, people saying, strike, protests against censorship, the defense of culture. Here you can say, don't tell me to shut up, and other things that are here written in the signs. But here you have people manifesting, against the military regime, right? And here you have even more people. No more dictatorship. People in power, says the sign here, this big sign here. So you're going to have artists like Chico Buarque, Gilberto Gil, and many others pacifically participating. It is important to point out that they were pacifically manifesting against the regime. However, not all of them were that pacific, were that peaceful, right? There were some people that would, make use of guns and many other violent ways of fighting against the regime, right? We had a radical left. Their motto was folkismo. Folkismo was created by Che Guevara, right? And it was a war strategy against, dictatorial regimes that were taking place not only in Brazil but all over Latin America. And it was basically based on creating small structures, many small structures all over the continent that would overcome dictator regimes and establish socialism, right? So you had, for example, ALN, the National Liberation Action led by Carlos Marighella, right? You also had the MRO, a revolutionary movement in October 8th, 1968. Let's keep in mind that 1968, guys, was really, really a one-off year. You had the hippies in the USA, right? You had the Vietnam War. You had lots of things going on in the world, in Europe, in France, and also here in Brazil, right? And here, these movements, these armed struggles, they took place both in the rural environments and in the urban environments. Here, Var Palmares was a revolutionary armed vanguard operating more in the rural environment, right? And we had two important strikes going on in 1968 as well. One in Contagem, in Minas Gerais, and another one in Osasco, São Paulo, right? So but that was not still enough for the military really, to harden up the regime. The last straw was a speech made by Deputy Marcio Moreira Alves. He was really offensive against the armed forces, and he urged the population and the other politicians to boycott the September 7th parade. This is the parade that would celebrate, the Republic. They would commemorate the Republic. And, among many other things that he said, this speech was the last straw because the military, this deputy even accused the military of killing and torturing people, which was something that was going on at the time, right? And the military felt really offended, and they demanded, that that the deputy was impeached, and the Chamber of Deputies refused to authorize, a suit against the deputy, and that was the pretext that the military were waiting, for them to close the Congress and to establish the most rigid and acute moment of the military regime, right? And that was the AI-5, right? So here you have the military now closing the Congress, right, and establishing the hardest time, the beginning, actually, of the hardest period of the military dictatorship in Brazil. They're going to decree the recess of the legislative at all levels for 1 year. They're going to intervene in the states and municipalities. They're going to impeach many mandates, around 100 mandates. Many are going to lose their political rights for 10 years. There's going to be other compulsory retirements. They are going to summarily dismiss civil servants, and even the habeas corpus would be suspended because they didn't want political prisoners to respond in freedom. No, they wanted them to keep in jail, right? And so censorship was absolute during this regime. Many artists were invited to leave the country, right? We're gonna have some famous songs in Brazil being composed at the time that will only be performed later on after the cooling down of the regime, so to say, right? And even and as I told you, Artur Costa is gonna have a stroke at the end of 1969, and they're gonna during this brief period of time from Artur and Costa and General Medici, right? A military joint will be established to keep governing the country. And here you have a picture of them, from left to right. Admiral Augustus Raidmaker, Minister of the Navy, General Aurelio de Lira Tavares, Minister of the Army, and Brigadier Marcio de Souza Melo, Minister of the Aeronautics. Right, so we're gonna have basically the Navy, the Army, and the Aeronautics all together leading the nation. And they are going to make use of the AI-5, right? And not only that, besides making use of the Institutional Act 5, they are going to even harden up things in some cases, that they're going to decree the death penalty for those accused of subversion, right? And really, they're gonna be really hated by everyone during the few months in which they presided the country. After them, we're gonna have President Medici elected, right? And these are gonna be the most, the hardest years of the dictatorship, the military dictatorship in Brazil. And we are going to be studying this period in our next video. So thank you so much for watching me, and see you in our next video.